decided to finally stop drinking. Poor quality tequilas. Who needs the headache? Introducing Talisman. Tequila by Tristan Tate.
Boom, anti-neocon report. I got Connor Freeman on the show from antiwar.com, Libertarian Institute, and he has his own show, Conflicts of Interest, and you can find him on the X platform by clicking on the links in the description under this video. How's it going, Connor?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. I'll just make a quick clarification. I co-host Conflicts of Interest, but it's Kyle Anzalone's show.
It's Kyle's show, and he's recently working for the judge, I hear.
Yeah. The Kyle Anzalone show is fantastic. It's been on for a few months now. I've been on it twice. We actually covered live the beginning of Israel's war on Iran.
What a time to launch a show.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Right on time.
Yeah, if there's a silver lining. Well, we all saw this war coming. It was a part of the script. So I wasn't shocked. Were you? Like, oh, look, Israel's attacking Iran. I just figured they were next.
Yeah, it felt like, in the days leading up to it, that there was the shoe was about to drop. Kyle had said that he didn't think that the negotiations on Sunday, on the 15th, were going to take place, but we didn't expect for Israel to just outright launch the war that quickly. I was furious when I first got the news off of Axios that the bombing is. I think I found out about it first from Twitter. Just from various accounts. And I was like, you can't be too sure if those things are accurate. And then I saw Axios was reporting and Al Jazeera, and I was just hopping mad because honestly, the big fear for me has always been that we already have killed something like 4.5 million people, according to the Cost of War Project, just in the terror wars at Brown University, the Cost of War Project. And I've always assumed that if we go to war with Iran, considering it's a country of 92 million people, and they have a real military, they have real defensive capabilities, that we would see, and also just whatever's left of the axis of resistance, we would see a war that would go on longer and possibly be even more devastating than all these last couple of decades.
There's probably another 400,000 out of Palestine, and that wouldn't have happened without U.S. support either. As soon as Trump said in 2 weeks, I go, okay, they're going to start a war before 2 weeks. That's all you needed to know there.
Yeah.
So I've got Colonel Doug McGregor on, and this video seems to be like a copy of some original video, but whatever. That's just what YouTube does. I don't care. I'm banned on YouTube, so F them. It's a lengthy clip. It's about 5 minutes long, but we're going to be able to react to all of it. So I'll drop us off and play this. This is Doug McGregor. If any of you don't know Doug, you got to follow him as well. He will be talking about the donor class and the long war, that this 12-day war isn't it, that it's not over, that it's going to continue.
Something where I tried to introduce the idea of the new long war, because I don't see any immediate resolution, certainly none in sight. This is a different set of circumstances, though, from what Americans have experienced in the past. This is a wholly Israeli fabricated war. In other words, Israel and its supporters in the United States have fabricated this war with the goal of achieving Israeli supremacy in the region. But more important, I think you're talking about about financial hegemony shared by the various billionaire oligarchs that dominate the city of London and New York City and now control Washington. And people are very concerned because this is not the Trump they knew 5-6 years ago, and it's not the Trump they thought they voted for. But they have to go back and rethink some of their assumptions. For those who actually watched the Republican convention, they could not have missed this event that had a giant Israeli flag on the wall, a huge sign that said Israel first, and then this gentleman, whom I do not know and have never seen before or since, walk out onto the stage and try to lead cheers for Israel first. I don't think people really understood what they were seeing, but it was a very clear demonstration of where we were headed as a country if Donald Trump were elected. And ultimately, Donald Trump could never have reached the White House had he not had the support of the Israel lobby's billionaires who were determined to get him into office. So now he's there and he's doing essentially what they want him to do. And that's where we are now. As far as the new long war is concerned, the reason I say that is that this 12-day conflict is not the end of anything. We've been down this road before. World War I did not really resolve anything. So you ended up with what people subsequently called a 20-year truce. And then the Second World War broke out, which was an extension of the first. Desert Storm ended in 1991 inconclusively because there was no willingness to either annihilate the Republican Guard Corps, which was largely allowed to escape, or to march on Baghdad and demand the replacement of Saddam Hussein. So we're in a similar situation now. The last 12 days did not resolve anything. If anything, it demonstrated that Iran's missile arsenal, as pointed out by Ben-Gvir in Israel, was far greater than anybody appreciated and far more accurate and devastating. And all you have to do is look at the map of targets that Larry Johnson published on his site. It's very clear that Israel is in a lot of trouble. And now we've had several people that have given us information suggesting that it was Israel that called President Trump and said, we need a pause. Can you help us with a ceasefire? It was certainly not Iran. And no one should be surprised by that. After all, Iran's a nation of 92 million. That's the size of Western Europe. So why would they be desperate at this point for a ceasefire? So I think we just don't know where we go from here, but I don't think it's anywhere good because the American people are not focused. And this is something most Europeans don't understand. Americans are not focused on foreign policy. They never have been, really. If you had put anything to a vote, Americans would not have fought in any of the wars beyond our borders. In fact, the only war that anybody was really excited about was the Mexican War in 1846, 47, 48. That's it. We weren't even very happy about the Civil War. The reason the Civil War lasted as long as it did was because the North didn't want to mobilize. People didn't want to fight the war. We didn't want to fight in World War I. Didn't want to fight in World War II. We were hoodwinked into these wars by presidents who were determined to drag us in. We went in, we fought, and as soon as they were over, we did everything we could to come home. And when the Cold War ended, we decided that's enough, and virtually everybody said, let's collect our military dividend. In other words, an end to this massive spending, come home and focus in the United States. And again, we developed arguments to go around that, to keep us engaged, on the assumption that keeping America engaged overseas was not necessarily important to us, but it was so important to the rest of the world that we be everywhere. And so we've been dealing with these various lobbies that have taken the position the world will not be safe until the United States occupies most of it. Well, that's insanity. But here we are with a different version of it. This time it's entirely Israel-focused, and it's designed to essentially establish this hegemony in the region, get control of all the oil resources. That's what the banks in the city of London and New York City want. That's what the billionaire oligarchs want. This morning I was listening to, I think it's Alex Kina, and he mentioned what he called the money-lending oligarchs. I had not heard that one before, but that works just as well as billionaire oligarchs. But I think it's probably more descriptive of just who is behind everything. And then I listened to Oliver Stone, who was speaking, was talking about much the same thing. And this will continue until Americans are somehow or another involved and killed. To be blunt, as long as Americans aren't being killed, other people can die, other people can suffer, but until you kill Americans, nobody here in the United States pays a great deal of attention. And I think that's what people in the White House and on the Hill know. However, there's a huge problem, and that is that we are on very shaky financial ground.
That's right. That's right. I mean, he often calls it the donor class, but he went a little bit more descriptive this time, calling it the Israel's billionaires, the billionaire oligarchs, the financial interests of London and New York. So he seems to say this forever war is driven, it's Israeli centric, and it's driven by a clique of billionaires using lobbyist influence. Couldn't be more accurate. This isn't in America's interest. It's not in the strategic or national interest. This is driven by Israel. And it's not even just Israel. It's just like the whims of these, I call them neocons, but of the donor class that decided they need all these wars.
Yeah, and this is why Trump is the best sort of front man to do it, because he has rebranded neoconservatism, or at least neoconservative guided policies with the "Make America Great Again" shtick and the "America First" the slogan itself, which means nothing. It's not even Israel first. I'm kind of sick of hearing that. It's Israel only, or just Israel. We're spending. In fact, I was just thinking today, because the House passed that bill, the big beautiful bill that has over $1 trillion now in military spending, and that's just the Pentagon, as you know, Ryan, and Robert Higgs has detailed so well. We're really spending roughly twice that, so it's going to be $2 trillion if you include the DHS and the interest on national security expenditures, the energy department's care and feeding of the nuclear weapons, and the intelligence agencies. But so he announced that originally in a joint presser with Netanyahu in the White House. I believe I want to say it was February. It was the first visit when he announced that he was going to own Gaza as well. And he goes, you're going to like this, and then tells the reporters, and we're going to have $1 trillion budget. And that's a war on the American people. That's a war on our own producers and consumers. And we're just constantly being suffocated and immiserated, whether it's Biden or Obama or Bush. But this is such a cynical way to do it, by having him in there, because he does not.
BBB sounds so much better than NDAA, which is what it is.
100%.
It's the NDAA again. But he calls it the big, beautiful bill. I call it the big, beautiful bull. I'm with Thomas Massey, Ron Paul on that with the spinning. But, people were so desperate, his base anyway, so desperate for a border wall and stuff he didn't do last time he was president for 4 years, or couldn't complete at least, that because that was in there, they're willing to overlook all the other shit. They're like, we got to have a wall.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think about this. I don't know at this point what the MAGA base really believes in when it comes to foreign policy. For the longest time, people, especially in my sort of libertarian camp, were overly optimistic about how much there had been a paradigm shift on the right. And I think, going back to 2015, I think that Trump was clearly speaking out of both ends of his mouth. I never liked him, didn't vote for him, didn't trust him, but just because I'd grown up with Fox News on all the time, and I know how those people talk, I know how neocons talk to voters, and I was just like, half of this sounds really bad. Ripping up the Iran deal, worst deal ever made, bringing back torture, expanding the surveillance systems, bombing the shit out of ISIS and their families, but no more endless wars.
ISIS, because he really normalized relations with al-Qaeda in Syria.
And in the most 4 years straight of backing al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and ISIS in Yemen against.
He blew up families in Yemen. Yeah, exactly. He did that. But he killed Soleimani, who was fighting ISIS in Syria.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite one. When they'll say, even it could be the hawk. Even like when Dubowitz was debating Scott recently, he goes, he's always been, looking to kill our enemies from Baghdadi to Soleimani. It's just complete. And Scott did call him out. You're talking about
but Baghdadi's protege is fine,
Oh yeah.
He did that. He did that strike on Soleimani because Bolton and a let's call it a working group got in his ear and told him to.
Yeah, and it's Gareth Porter has a great piece. It's his first one he wrote for the Gray Zone back in 2020, early 2020. No, I guess no, it might have been late 2020. But he wrote a piece about how uh, they had, it was really Pompeo, Bolton, and Netanyahu that rolled him through a series of escalations after the drone was shot down over the Strait of Hormuz, into provoking him into getting into a war with Iran. And it ultimately culminated in the assassination of Soleimani. And again, we were only really saved by the fact that Iran exercised exquisite restraint. And when they do that, I think there's a part of Trump that goes, shit, like I got to kind of give him, I got to kind of lay off at this point. But in this case, I think he pulled Netanyahu's feet out of the fire. Yeah.
Because Jim Loeb wrote about the working group before it happened. Like, this is what they're pushing for, type of thing. And then Gareth Porter. I was on Press TV as it happened. And so I ended up being just kind of like in their digital war room for about an hour after the interview was over. And I was saying, don't take the bait, don't react the way they want you to. They're gunning for a war with Iran, and Iran knew that. And that's what I want to talk to you about, is this 12-day war. Is we had, well, McGregor too in that clip was saying it's not over. And did you notice the language when Israel got on the phone? It says we need a pause, not an end, a pause. Yeah. And they said, well, its stated objective is, well, we have to get rid of their breakout nuclear capacity, whatever. But we all know that they've been saying that for 20 years. The real reason to destroy Iran is because Iran supports groups that actually resist Israel's ethnic cleansing and land annexation. And they're like, oh, they call Hezbollah, the Houthis, terrorists. You attack them. You attack Lebanon. You attack Gaza. You attack Yemen. And Saudi Arabia did too. You're the terrorist. You're the one blowing up families and shooting up funerals with drones. And good Lord, look at what they're doing in Gaza. And they just bombed people in Beirut too. Just bombed apartments. Just, you know, that's terrorism.
Well, yeah, and also the they've carried out thousands of strikes in Lebanon since the November ceasefire. So this entire idea that, oh, I arranged a ceasefire, aren't I a peacemaker? Like, there's no such thing as a ceasefire that Israel agrees to.
Look at all the airstrikes on Syria too. Throughout the war, they exclusively bombed Assad, never ISIS.
Oh yeah, well, they flew as ISIS's air force in the Southwest. Back during the Trump years, actually, because, it was the idea was, well, we ended Operation Timber Sycamore. Right. But our greatest ally is supporting and flying as their air force. Also, that's that famous, story that people can look up in Newsweek when ISIS did attack Israel once. They apologized, according to former defense
two
minister
guys.
Moshe Ya'alon. Yeah, they didn't attack Israel. It was a mistake. And they were being used as a buffer force on the Golan Heights, really. And also, they bombed Syria every week for years. I mean, through the first Trump administration, going back to 2011, 2012, like throughout the worst parts of the war, the dirty war against Damascus. But it went on and on throughout the Trump years and throughout the Biden years. Throughout the Biden years, they would just constantly bomb like Damascus International Airport, the Aleppo International Airport. Even after there was that horrible earthquake in Syria and southern Turkey, they kept bombing the Aleppo International Airport, which was a key point for aid. Yeah. And they've always done that. And the U.S. had occupied, a third of the country. They're kind of shifting forces around now because they've reached more or less normalization with al-Qaeda in Damascus. And I guess they're going to move to Al-Tanf. But there's just a new report on antiwar.com about a piece in Al-Monitor where the Israelis and the Syrians are discussing having the U.S. Replace the Israeli soldiers on Mount Hermon so that Israel can go out and basically reclaim the territory in the old UN monitored buffer zone. As they expand further into Syria. But, and also that phraseology of, Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terror. I don't even know what metric that refers to at this point at all, because it's only true if you knock off you don't include the United States, you don't include Israel, you don't include Saudi Arabia, you don't include the UAE and our other Gulf dictatorship allies. Turkey. Turkey especially. And so it's all
in Azerbaijan. Let's throw them in. Azerbaijan was using their, I think it's called Silkway Airlines diplomatic flights to bring weapons to ISIS.
Yeah.
And Azerbaijan apparently was involved in, they allowed their airspace, at least for the Israelis, to preemptively attack Iran over Nukugabuga.
Yeah.
That just happened.
Yeah, and I heard
they were the very first origin of Blackwater too. Was their first contract was in Azerbaijan. as contractors, because they had a law against foreign troops. So as contractors, though, they could go in, heavily invested in by the Prince of Darkness, Richard Pearl, through IAI. They set that up. Him and Feith were just set up this private equity fund and dumped it in. So they were partners with Eric Prince in that whole fiasco that becomes, what are they called now? Academy or Z or something, whatever.
I
It's still
forget
Blackwater.
what the new rename
They keep
thing
they
is.
keep having to rebrand. As you said, Trump is, this is the neocons with a small n. Like I'll give the capital N to the one with the biological definition of the Trotskyites and the kind of Justin Raimondo neocon, but neocons with a small n, ideological neocons. This is exactly what we have. It's Bush Jr. all over again. I mean, I don't like presentism, and I don't like when people make historical analogies that are kind of stretched, because it would be neat if they were true. But this is not one of those. It's really, we got to get them over there before they get us here. That's what they said about Iraq. And he said, we can't let them have a nuclear bomb. Saddam has reconstituted his nuclear weapons program. Cheney said that on Meet the Press. Wasn't true. Iran's about to get the bomb. It's exactly the same. It's not some crash generalization. This is the recycled lies. Some of the same people, and the like second generation neocons or whatever, they're in there lying about WMDs, essentially lying about Iran's the state sponsor of terror. And it's weird. It's a weird type of lie, because they're always guilty of their own accusations. They say accusations are confessions. Everything Israel said about Iraq is true about Israel, and everything Israel said about Iran is true about Israel. There's not a war crime ever thought of that they haven't done.
No. The news in Gaza every day. It's like, I hate, again,
they're poisoning food now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to bring back another one of the, like you're saying, the historical analogies that we typically like to avoid but are true. I do feel like I'm absolutely just sitting here reading about a Holocaust in real time, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, they're starving to death. It's like the Holocaust, but in color, because you see the bones sticking out of their skin and everything, the similar stuff you'd see at Buchenwald or something, you're seeing there in Rafah.
And we're seeing
even outside Rafah, because they can't, they're intense.
Yeah, and we're seeing effectively, what's really interesting to me about this moment, this in Ukraine, is if you notice, they are loath to send in ground troops to take heavy casualties, because there may at some point be resistance. But the Ukraine war and the war in Gaza are immensely unpopular, but nothing has changed. They've only escalated and gotten worse. And I think what they've discovered is the American people like get mad about it and then kind of like go, well, it's like fact of life. And that's kind of how we're treating Gaza at this point.
Well, there's no alternative. Like Genocide Joe, to be fair, was he started the war in Ukraine and Syria and Libya. Him and Obama did,
and might as well own Iraq too.
Yeah, he voted for Iraq. It was, and that, I think people think, they get mad and what do we do? You could vote, like it came down to, well, at least we'll get rid of paper straws.
Yeah, no, actually,
at least the bombs won't have rainbows on them, because that's all there was different. There was a little bit of idea. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I have really got to say that I think in retrospect, and I kind of felt this way at the time, I would have rather had Harris win, because I live in Arizona. I didn't meet anybody throughout the Biden years, especially after the first year. No. A little bit. Nobody I met liked the government. They hated the government. Now, admittedly, I live in a red state, or mostly red. But around the country, their anti-government sentiment, anti-establishment sentiment was higher than it's been probably since the 70s. And we decided that it made strategic sense to halt that momentum by bringing Trump back, because really, the Trump thing, in a way, it gives life support not only to the Democratic Party. Release. Yeah, it corrals everybody back into the uni-party system. It allows it's a great rebranding tactic, as we discussed, for expanding the war state, for increasing spending, as we always are going to anyway, for increasing surveillance, as we can now see with the new partnerships with Palantir, for even the NATO. I mean, they just passed, his lobbying for years for them to increase spending. They now have inked this pledge to raise military spending to 5% of GDP, which I guess means we're going to be spending somewhere around $1.4 trillion officially at the Pentagon.
Was that NATO or just Germany? It would end up being all of them.
Yeah. That Spain resisted and Belgium resisted, but then Rutte, the Secretary General, said you don't have any option to opt out. And
Spain's been pretty based. I mean, they recognize Palestine. Corsica just recognized Palestine this week. That's a step towards France in general, I suppose. Something at least they discussed. They rejected it, but at least they were talking about it. We did have like Romania, Slovenia, Ireland, Norway, and Spain. Spain, the biggest of those, obviously, but most of the rest of the world already recognized Palestine.
And most of the world recognizes that Israel's a pariah state at best. And the biggest change is that now Americans are realizing that too. But we're so tied at the hip and it's really, we should be as well by all, we have no right really, we have no credibility left.
Sitting Ducks sent in a 10 and says, get a fundamental understanding of the carnal nature of Lincoln. It's a very creative way of saying fuck Lincoln. You can go ahead and say it. Guys, add Connor on X. I just put his handle in the Rumble chat. If you could do that, I would appreciate it.
But we're really making sure of it now by sticking with Israel through all of this. We just completely undermine the entire non-proliferation regime globally.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
Because I'm in South Korea, for those who don't know. Remember back in 2018, largely because of President Moon, not President Trump, but the South Korean president, they got in, they talked to Kim. It looked like, okay, maybe we can do something like the 90s with the 6-party talks and start cooperative economic zones and stuff they had before the chocolate wars. And you can kiss that all goodbye, because when they used the IAEA to spy on Iran and use deal making as a pretext to preemptively bomb twice, and they're having the audacity to say, hey, let's meet in Oslo, give them the finger, Iran. North Korea is watching all that and going, no, we're never going to denuclearize. After that, you think we're going to get rid of these bombs that's deterrent? No. And more so, they could start selling them to someone else. I mean, they permanently ruined America's ability to negotiate. How is he going to negotiate about Ukraine and Russia when the whole world just watch you lie to Iran so that Israel could attack them? And you use the agency used to inspect as a method to spy and figure out where scientists lived so Israel could assassinate them.
Yeah, exactly. And now the Guardian Council, or actually I should say the president, yesterday signed into law the bill suspending cooperation with the IAEA. So they're going to kick the inspectors out. And the next step, has always been a concern, not because I really fear Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I think they should. I think it would be the best thing, probably. One of the best things, since we're not going to be able to rein Israel in. It would be the best, unless
who has nukes and got them by stealing material from the United States. It's just the chutzpah, And Aaron Mate had a nice breakdown on just sort of the history of the IAEA. Forget where I saw him talking about it, but he was talking about it and saying, because in the Iraq war, the IAEA actually said they don't have a nuclear program. So they say, man, we got to commandeer this, because they, the same officials from the IAEA ended up investigating the gas attacks in Syria and lying about that. Yeah. So it's just, they were compromised. And like, that's like if you use a neutral organization like that, or the Red Cross, or white helmets is supposed to be medics, and everyone sees what it is, then you've forever ruined the ability to use such a thing in the future. Now you don't have inspectors. Now you're blind. And I think that's what they wanted. They'd be like, look, they kicked out the inspectors, because they're not going to say the other half of the story that we use them as spies to murder scientists and officers. So you guys got to say, well, they kicked out inspectors. They must be hiding something. And they know that they can. And Thomas Sowell famously said, you're going to start the story in the middle. So,
that is.
He just had a birthday, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. But
95, man, 95.
No shit.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I knew he was up there, but that's pretty fantastic.
I thought he was like 83 for some reason, but nope.
Yeah. I can't remember do you know how old Ron is? Is he like 88
I think
now?
he's
89?
just turned 90, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and Ron Paul in my head's like 65.
Yeah.
Like,
He's like Mick Jagger. He just stays relatively young in your head.
you got that, was it Pat Sajak? He just doesn't age.
Ron,
He's really looked about the same for the last 20 years. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Looks good.
Yeah, definitely. Man, it's so crazy to think that Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel now.
Dude,
every time I see him, I
the
remember
ambassador to Israel is a guy that doesn't believe in dinosaurs.
Yeah. Who also, I mean, where was he? Jesus. Do you remember that debate with Ron where he goes, Ron's saying, like, we have to leave Iraq. We've already lost thousands of soldiers. Only thousands more are going to die. And you're just doing this to save face. The war was based on, he's making this great pitch. And then Huckabee goes, Congressman, we went into war as one nation under God. And we can't leave now because we went in as one. And Ron is just looking at him like, are you fucking insane? Because that's how dumb he is.
I know. I love his Vietnam hill. We would just waltz in and we just waltzed out. Like there is no point. And things got better after we left.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He directly compares it to Vietnam. And Huckabee is just like, if we made a mistake, we did it as one nation under God and we have to stay there. It's just, this is how these people are. And he's, what was his, he came out right before the war started with Iran and said that we're not pursuing a Palestinian.
How arrogant is it for people to throw a deity in and say, well, what I'm doing is the Lord wants me to. Like,
we're supposed to laugh
under
at
that logic. How could you do otherwise?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Would that be anything you did? Like,
oh yeah. I met Epstein as one, our Congress meets with Epstein on a regular basis as one nation under God. So, and we can't pull out now. But
nice pun. That was good. Hey, oh God is a prayer technically. So I guess there was a lot of praying on the islands and all his other properties.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been unbelievable to watch this because, the other thing too is the reason I think the war is going to continue is one, as you said, the IAEA inspectors have been kicked out. So that provides even more plausible deniability for them to push and say, we don't know now. Now we don't know, as if it's no fault of our own. What's going on?
It's like the Plame affair. Oh, you just wrecked Brewster Jennings and Associates, which was the front for the CIA wing that was their tracking nuclear weapons proliferation. And now you outed them all so that you could create the fog of war so you could lie.
Yeah. And
that yellow cake Niger crap was so bad that you didn't need the CIA or anything. Like they had obsolete military seals. They had the date changed within the same document. And best of all, you forged a foreign minister who wasn't even in power at the time to sign it. So that'd be like a document today and it's signed by Rumsfeld or something, he's not even there.
Exactly. Well, it's hilarious. I mean, man, you did better than anybody in Empire Unmasked and War is Always by Deception, showing the effort that went into the lead up into lying us into Iraq and how a lot of it comes out of PNAC letters and Weekly Standard articles that were written up in the 90s, and then they just went through and
they recycled them. Yeah, it was Kagan and Gary Schmidt, some from Fred Barnes, that Gary Schmidt especially, and he ended up on the advisory board for intelligence. Like that guy is in Bush's ear, the one that's writing Why Iraq. I remember October 19th, 2001, Why Iraq. And he's in there lying about anthrax. It's like, wow, the Israelis witnessed, really? The Israeli security forces witnessed the transfer of anthrax in Prague between Atta and Iraqis? Weird, because there was no meeting in Prague between Atta and Iraqis, and Iraq didn't have anthrax, and neither did Al-Qaeda. According to you yourself, you blamed it all on Bruce Ivins, who also didn't do it and had a weird suicide. He got Epstein. But it's like, hold on. The Israelis said they saw this. Why wasn't it? And you know who relayed that information? James Woolsey, former director of the CIA and an Epstein client. It's like the Hair Club for Men. I'm also a client or something like that's him. That's Woolsey. Clinton hated him. Whatever, but in War's Always by Deception went over that and more in Empire Unmasked. Empire Unmasked being redone right now. Like we're 2 hours and 30 something minutes finished with it, and it looks like another 40 minutes to go. So it did shave it down. but hopefully it'll be at that NUMEC level or close to production.
Sweet.
But I, you know, that's why I know the date's kind of fresh because I've been working on that. I'm like, man, it infuriates me. I don't even like listening to myself explain it. Like,
Yeah.
out here, I'm like, man, this is the feeling I had back in 2002, 2003, where, and Scott Horton had a like similar feeling. We kind of had a lay on the couch session about it. I was so frustrated because you could yell to your blue in the face. They don't have WMDs. They're lying. This is Israel's war. And there's an Office of Special Plans. And it didn't matter. There was nowhere like, and up until about 2023, I was banned on everything. So I've had that feeling for 20 years. And finally I get returned on Twitter, the lowest of the ranking social media, but it's better than nothing. Because of Elon Musk, and man, you can crap on him all day, but I don't care. If he's principled on free speech, it's worth it. And I'll tell you another thing. If he backs Thomas Massey, so we have an anti-APAC, totally worth it. And people are dissing, well, Elon did this, Elon said that. Who cares? As long as, I don't think Elon's backing Massey because Massey's the anti-APAC guy. In fact, I know he's not. I think Elon cares
He's still
about
wearing the
balanced
dog
budget.
tags, right?
Yeah, it's that autistic ticker. I mean, that, you know, that works on Spurgs. That causes anxiety. Like, this is the debt, and it's just moving. Like, it's bobbing back and forth faster than Lindsey Graham on a choir. It's just boom, 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 and you're seeing it. Lindsey Graham drinks bottled water with two hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Probably got unsweetened iced tea in there. Yeah.
Did you see? I saw this great meme the other day where it says, "Did you see it? It's Thomas Massey."
Half the Lindsey Graham memes are mine. At least
this one had Thomas Massey. It says he's raw milk, and then it shows that kid from the 2019 shooting, and it says soy milk. David Hogg. I forget who the other one was.
Ted Cruz.
And it says what was his? I can't remember. But then it goes to Lindsey Graham, and he's got his tongue, he's licking his lips, and it says, "That wasn't milk."
Yeah. I didn't make that one, but I made it popular.
I enjoy it.
But the Lindsey Graham memes, like, if you go to my Twitter, guys, just write like @RightLiberty and then write Lindsey Graham. It's unbelievable, all the one-liners I've done on Lindsey Graham. Like, guy's so far deep in his closet he can see Narnia in his rearview mirror.
He is, I just heard a clip of him recently. I don't know who he was speaking to. It might have been some sort of Israel lobby.
Lindsey Graham can gargle peanut butter.
Yeah, he's got, I mean, his throat has been trained over many decades. He said
he's the one that perks up anytime someone says Iron Dome. Iron Dome.
Iron Dome.
Don't Google Lindsey Graham ladybugs. Seriously, don't. You'll regret it.
What is that?
Oh man, don't nobody Google Lindsey Graham and his ladybugs.
Oh shit, I'm tempted, honestly.
It's nasty.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I heard him give his speech, and he goes, I support Israel because Israel's killing people that want to kill America. I mean, name me one person that wants to kill Israel doesn't also want to kill America. That's why I support them. Shared values and common enemies.
He went up on after the hurricane that decimated the Carolinas and a bit of Tennessee, and he's a senator from South Carolina, as like pieces of a house were floating by in the water. And he said, we got to help Israel. Like, he wanted to change the subject to helping Israel.
Yeah.
Not his own constituents. The guy is irredeemable. It's like John McCain's anti-soul got reincarnated, like a little enough. That's what it is. Enough of John McCain's DNA was in Lindsey Graham somehow that he just absorbed bits of John McCain's personality. That's how much he drank of the milk he drank, and got in there in other means. But the point I was making about Massey, though, I just want to finish up. Like, Elon does care about a balanced budget. That's his thing with Doge and all that, is cutting waste. And so if he backs Massey for that reason, which is a pretty good reason anyway, it doesn't matter about all this other stuff Elon has wrong. If Massey gets in and has that money, and he really does start to primary everybody that voted for the big, beautiful bill, this is exactly what we need. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like Ralph Nader says, only the billionaires can save us. That's sarcasm, and it's not. It is like this. You
Yeah.
shouldn't. APAC should be registered under FARA, but it's not gonna be. The only like practical solution is to outspend them, and you need the richest man in the world to do that. What's he worth now? 300 billion, whatever.
I thought it was
400
like
billion,
400
yeah,
or something.
like
Yeah.
400 and something billion. Yeah, he could do it. He like, hey, you have money, you could buy Congress.
Right.
You know, we need a better billionaire. Like we need a more benevolent oligarch, because we're always going to have an oligarch in this system. Like Lincoln broke it. It's unfixable. So the best you can hope for is some, billionaire with Asperger's that wants to cut waste, and that, that'll do it.
What's your take on why he became so pro-Israel after the ADL came after him? Like he wears the IDF dog tags and he went to
Yeah,
Auschwitz with
because he had
Shapiro.
an ad apocalypse, they was yanking there. It's weird. You're admitting, oh, they have the ability to yank all your ads off Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only reason he could keep that afloat at all was because of East Asia, because they don't listen to them. APAC has no power in East Asia. But that Twitter is more popular in Japan than Facebook. I think it's the only country where Twitter is more popular than Facebook. And I can tell you why that is because Facebook was lagging so badly on translating it into Japanese. And unlike none of them speak English. But there was the ads out of Japan, South Korea, and those areas, Taiwan, that kept them on life support because everybody yanked it. Now, they could only yank it for so long. They were going to yank it long enough to do a regime change and then put them back again, because you do benefit from having ads on Twitter, or nobody would do it, right?
Right.
But yeah, the lobby came in and were like, we've labeled this anti-Semitic. They did a labeling. This is what they do. The Mossad will call their offices in different cities and say, shut it down. And they did. So, and he had the tour, the crib with the bullet. And then I think he took them to Auschwitz-Birkenau and saw a film about the Holocaust, as if that is any way related at all to what's happening in Gaza. It's not, So yeah, the Sahedrin just got on him. And the thing is, they have his ear. We don't. Benicide Shapiro is standing right next to him at Auschwitz. It's like, so we got to take him here and we got to show Elon this. And, he's very susceptible, just like Trump. He's like, listens to whoever's around him, and he doesn't have good people around him.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's why I was very excited to see people like Scott Horton on with Tucker Carlson all of a sudden. I said, man, that should have happened when he was on Fox. That should have happened many, many years ago.
Yeah.
It's like Daryl Cooper on Joe Rogan. I'm like, if we can get intelligent people on these shows, it will move the needle. And that hasn't happened yet, except for the couple of examples I just said. It hasn't really happened. It's always some twit. And this deeply bothers me in it's our culture, even though I don't live there anymore. But it's in the United States, a lot of people hold some nitwit as their hero. It's like Kanye or some rapper or whatever, or Justin Bieber or something, and not
Alex Jones.
Yeah, Alex Jones is the worst. But it's not like one of the founding fathers or somebody of achievement. It's this guy dances on the stage, or he plays sports ball or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with liking Michael Jordan or something like that. That's fine. But damn, dude, when it comes to politics, you don't need to be listening to actors and musicians and stuff. Like I can't think of any of them that know much about it compared to Thomas Jefferson or something like that. Like
I don't
Leonardo
I don't know what's keeping the system alive at this point. It seems like most people, like to your point, Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris didn't help. You know what I mean? Like, I think they've lost, especially since COVID. Like, I don't think Hollywood can convince people of shit anymore. I don't think they're respected anymore. It helps that Hollywood is dead for all intents and purposes. Like
I'm going to push back on that. I think it didn't. I think it did help. I think she was so far behind that even with all the celebrities, she lost.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There was no way she was going to win. That is, it was close.
Was she drunk? Do you think she was drunk sometimes when she would get up and do her word salads?
Oh yeah, and on benzos.
She was so annoying. I can't hear her. I can't even hear an impersonation of her. Like a few seconds, they were going, just.
Yeah,
it's like, she's so awful. It would say absolutely nothing. it was like a fourth grader that has a book report that only read the title and just said like, it's like where the red fern grows is, you know, about the fern is red. It's about dogs, by the way, but you know, just sitting there talking.
I love it.
nothing.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable. But you know, to me, honestly, it was that's why I kind of wanted her to win, was because no one would take her seriously. I really wanted that. And I actually like that about Biden
Yeah, but
too.
then you'd
because
have Anthony Blinken for another 4 years.
Well, yeah, that's true. But then
You
again,
would get rid of Jill Biden at least. I think she was calling a lot of shots.
yeah, that's true.
I
Oh
mean, we
God,
basically had an
you
invalid for
answered
president.
all the questions. You
Can you
did
imagine?
so well.
Yeah, look, you put your name, Joe. Hooray.
You wrote it
It
down.
was so bad. And they all covered him. The whole mass media, they're like, he's falling up the stairs, falling off his bike, walking off the stage in the wrong direction, holding his hand out, and no one's there unless it's John Cena. No one saw him or something. But like,
But in
he's
a
just
very
shaking hands.
sharp way, a very
Yeah,
intelligent.
and they're like, whoa,
witty
whoa,
way.
get him over here, you know, whatever fladafidel or whatever pills they put him on. And they just had this and it didn't matter. Like someone else is making all the decisions, obviously.
Yeah.
I remember Pelosi saying, don't let him do that. Like, don't let him speak. They knew he was gone. And now he's got colon cancer. The butt hurt is real, but that's what we left. And yeah, I couldn't get excited about Trump. I did want him over Genocide Joe, but like it's really hair splitting.
That's the only
make
reason I
joke,
wanted her to lose, was just because it was a referendum on the genocide. But unfortunately, it also meant that you were just going to get a continuation, if not an escalation of it. And that's what we're seeing.
We were going to
now.
go to war with Harris too. Like,
I
Iran
agree.
was
I agree.
always like, that's the plan. And
what I like about it,
at least
is
with Trump, he can change his opinion in a day. You know, he's all this and then I'll never, and then he's like Dana White. He's completely this and then completely that. You know?
Yeah, but he is consistent in that he's always been terrible on Russia. He's always been terrible on China. He's always been terrible on Iran. He's always been terrible on Israel. He always spends more. He never reduces the centralization of power or you know, ends surveillance. He always lies. He
used to be better on Korea and Syria, but not now.
Yeah.
Like
the Syria thing was interesting. He tried to pull out allegedly, and was over.
Yeah, they just lied to him.
Yeah. Well, you know, but honestly, then you look at Yemen, the war powers resolutions, which one of which at least got passed through the Senate, and he vetoed it. So, and they haven't tried. You know, they did try.
They lost
Tim
3 F-18s, 2 in the drink, and 1 shot down by our own defense missile, allegedly. Because I don't know, like if Yemen had managed to pull that off, they'd never admit it.
Yeah,
the loss of face.
They have shot down a lot of drones.
But I'm curious, and I don't know if you know this. I'm going to ask Ritter about it next time he's on. But can you really lose a plane just by jerking the boat so hard that the plane just slides off into the water? That just seems like it just sounds like bullshit. I don't know enough about carriers and whatever, but like that to me just sounds like, come on, do you really just want to build another one? Like what happened for real? That's what I want to know. Like
we're simultaneously the most barbaric regime in the world, but also the most incompetent and stupid.
Dude, it's
and that's
idiocracy.
Kind of what it is. And Trump to me like represents that so well. Like I said, the only reason I want to Kamala win is because no one believes in her. That's the only thing.
Somebody AI Trump watering the plants with Mountain Dew. Please, somebody do that.
Please,
I've seen those videos. It's like you're just watering it with Mountain Dew or whatever it was in Idiocracy. They had some made up drink, but the president had Mountain Dew in his name, so I think that'll work.
Now it drives me nuts too, because like even it persists. Like even people I respect will like write articles where they're like, "Well, Trump secured a ceasefire, and we should commend him for that."
But it's got electrolytes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that's what this is.
That's my comment to stuff like that. Charlie Cuck was saying Trump should get a Nobel Peace Prize. He stopped 3 wars. I'm like, you can't start a war in Yemen and then stop it and preemptively strike Iran and then stop it. Like you're stopping things you created. You and Israel decided to do that yourself.
He was referring to Gaza too, because he goes, well, look at the tweet or the Truth Social post. My representatives talked to Israel and they're finalizing proper conditions for a 60-day ceasefire period.
Yeah, right. And then you gave $500 million and probably some B-2s to Israel. plus
JDAMs for
$94 million
500,000-pound
for
bombs.
Israeli propaganda. Say that again. 2,000 pounds. Oh,
yeah, JDAMs
yeah.
for 2,500-pound bombs, plus all the logistics and maintenance of their planes and all their other equipment. We've sent them 90,000 tons of weapons and other military equipment for this, funding 70% of all their war-related expenditures.
They spend more money on Israel than they do on West Virginia or Arkansas.
Yeah, the
Their
latest
own
estimate
state.
I saw is 35 billion in total, not just in aid to Israel, but for all of our other ancillary
Oh,
operations.
that clears most states then.
Yeah.
That's more than holy crap. That's like the GDP of Canada. No.
That's why I say it's Israel only, not Israel first. Like there would have to be others involved.
You're acting like there's a second. I'm like, well, who's second?
Yeah, exactly.
Not us.
No, and it's you know, I mean, God, you know, and it doesn't so we've now set the precedent where the president can do, obviously since 45, but these are undeclared illegal. Rebuke that failed. We've also torn up the non-proliferation treaty for all intents and purposes. He already tore up the IAEA, the INF treaty, the Open Skies treaty, tried to kill.
Well, maybe Iran could say, look, we'll get back on it as soon as Israel does too.
Right. Who was it that proposed that? Oh, Gates. I was surprised when he said, you could make a nuclear deal in the Middle
Matt
East.
Gates.
Yeah, that was a good point, man. But
He's had some McGregor moments too, man. Matt Gates talked about, well, the Epstein was obviously blackmail ring from a foreign country. I don't want to say which one, but
I love when people say that.
Yeah.
You know,
this one.
It was so funny too. You know, when I was referring earlier to your movies, the great thing about it is you see how the effort that went into lying us into the war, it took them more than a year. I mean, they needed all of 2002.
Yeah, they didn't do any prep this time. They just sort of did it.
Yeah,
and then
it
started
was low
saying
effort,
nukes. Yeah.
low energy war propaganda. And they said,
you got low energy war propaganda.
and then also it was so transparent when people, I wrote that article with Will Porter about the poll that came out from YouGov and The Economist showing that a vast majority of the American people across every demographic, your bell wasn't included, but every demographic was against the war. But I actually think those statistics would have looked good too. Probably. Who knows? But so we go through all that, and then we talked about the right-wing voices that are opposing the war. And I go, let's cut Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec because I know they're going to sell out as soon as the bombs drop. Yeah. And they did, but it was so transparent in the days leading up because Nikki fucking Haley came out against regime change. So the way that it was so lame, the way they were like, oh, we don't want a regime change war. That's unpopular and usually ends in disaster. We just want to take care of the nuclear weapons risk because of the proliferation risk. And that's all Trump wants to do. And that's always been Trump's policy. They did this whole thing where they're like, he said no more endless wars and no more wars in the Middle East. Yeah, but Trump has been consistent about Iran's nuclear weapons, and that's what needs to be stopped. And like even Posobiec was like, listen, Trump just wants them to drop the nukes. You know, it just
and
assuming
that's why he attacked Yemen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because then they said, well, Iran was going to give away a nuclear weapon to the Yemen. As if, and Yemen's going to just take that from them too, right? Just like when Judith Miller said that Saddam Hussein gave his WMDs to Syria.
Yeah, exactly.
She had three sources for that report: Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz, and anonymous Israeli security sources. Like, oh yeah, you're just rubbing our nose in it now. As if Syria is going to watch Iraq get destroyed, Saddam's sons murdered, all that, and go, yeah, I'll hold on to these weapons for you. And if someone invades your country and you do have WMDs, use them. You're gonna die anyway.
Right?
Yeah, they never had them, and they knew.
Oh, that's such a great point. That's such a great that no one ever that doesn't occur to anybody. Why wouldn't it? Even in the early days of the invasion,
like okay, so you're Saddam Hussein. You've got these weapons. You're being invaded. They're killing your children. They're gonna hang you. And you just decide, oh, I'm going to not use these weapons because it'll make America look bad or something.
Yeah, exactly. I just, they didn't put any effort in and they don't need to. I mean, they showed with with
I'm going to
Yemen,
Israel
when they
that
launched
from
the war.
you, the low energy propaganda.
Please. When they
It
did
is.
the launch war in Yemen, again, no real effort, and the Pentagon basically stonewalled reporters. I mean, and then he declared victory, which doesn't make sense because the Houthis never stopped attacking Israeli shipping and U.S. warships, etc. But it's just they don't feel the need to. It's like even with Ukraine, right? Like they kind of, it was just unprovoked, and democracy, and we got to keep NATO together. There was, obviously the
That was their talking point, unjustified and unprovoked.
yeah.
How could you ever say unprovoked?
Oh, the worst one was October 7th. That was the worst version of it. Oh yeah, totally unprovoked. Why would they
nothing
do
going on, just happened out
invaded
of the
by another
blue.
country?
They're just anti-Semitic.
My favorite line from Blinken, it used to drive me fucking nuts, was when he would go, "Look, any country that finds itself in this position would act the way Israel has," as if Switzerland could find themselves in this
Which
position.
other country is building racial colonies, settlements in top? Like, what other country is doing this right now? They build Jewish-only colonies. Where
We
they just,
decided to
like,
turn
somebody from
concentration
Brooklyn
camp.
can come in and be like, "God gave me this living room 3,000 years ago. It's mine. Get out." It's insane.
Yeah.
But that's their like legal claim to land and property. Is my storybook said that Jacob had a wrestling match with an angel, and because of that, all of this belongs to my bloodline.
Yeah. Oh, every once in a while, you're going to have to turn your concentration camp with the indigenous population that you ethnically cleansed into a death camp if you're provided with a suitable casus belli. Any country would do this in that situation. It would.
Yeah, it's like blaming a slave revolt on the slaves instead of on slavery. It's like,
Right.
well, there wouldn't be slaves to do a revolt if you could not enslave them. Like, if you didn't put people in a concentration camp, they wouldn't have to break out of the wall. I mean, they had murdered 233 Palestinians that year. And you talked about them being stonewalled. The good Stonewall Jackson once said, "If the North triumphs, it is not alone the destruction of our property. It is the prelude to anarchy," and he means the bad kind, "infidelity, and the ultimate loss of free and responsible government on the continent." Like, yeah, that's pretty much what you got. Lee's letters to Acton are better, but it's just been corporatism since Lincoln and Grant. Like, that's where we get the word lobby from. Yep. And now we're arguing about, well, maybe we can make a lobby, do this. It is the battle of the lobbyists. There are no principled besides Massey and like a couple token, maybe. Or you could argue Rand Paul, perhaps. Like, there really isn't anybody left. It's all just, they ought to be. I don't really like this person, but he had a good point. Michael Moore, he said you should walk in there like NASCAR with like the stickers on of like, of all your corporate sponsorships. Like, yeah, this is Lockheed.
Giraldi got canceled for that same joke.
Who did?
Giraldi.
Philip Giraldi?
Yeah, I never understood why everybody turned on him, because I thought that was the point of his.
No, it was because in the American Conservative, he used the J word. It's just in the title, and it's spelled out what he means in the article, but it doesn't matter because they're so sensitive. It is weird because if he had said the Kurds, no one's like, well, not all of them. Like, come on, you know what he's talking about when he said Jew, who he means, like Jewish supremacist, Israeli Zionist, whatever. But you have to, with that term, you have to be super careful. Even though all of us say stuff like the Russians, and we mean the government, like. Yeah, all the time for any other group except that one. Right. Then you're Hitler. So.
But even more narrowly, I just didn't understand. He compared it to rat poison. Like, you need a warning label on it, if I remember correctly. And that's what everybody got upset about. But you don't, he's not saying that they're rats. It was just a weird thing. I maybe he could have changed the some of the wording, but
he shouldn't have to. Like, it's Phil Giraldi. He's got a long body of work. He's not anti-Semitic or whatever. Like, they just they want an excuse. They just want to. I mean, that's how you make someone become anti-Semitic. Right? Take their livelihood away and everything. That's Also, Caitlin Johnstone had a great line about
She said she's something like she's tired of hearing about anti-Semitism, that there's like a special group of white people who are get really upset if you don't want to send your kids to die in Iran for them.
Yeah.
It's such a great line. But yeah, that's what it has come down to. That's all they have left. It's really interesting watching these Piers Morgan shows, because I would, if I was one of the bad guys and
Dude,
was a
has
part
he
of the
had his
lobby.
redemption arc?
No, he's terrible on
Not yet.
Iran.
He's
He's
terrible
good on
Iran.
Gaza. He's
He's
good on
starting
Gaza.
to get better in Gaza. I think he owes Andrew Tate an apology because he went on there October 9th and let him have it.
Yeah.
I fed him some lines, but it was like he
Oh, really?
went in there, and it's just like, dude, come off it. Now he's starting to see, like, oh look, they won't allow journalists in for 20 months. They're shooting ambulances up, and they're killing everybody, man. They're dropping bombs on apartments. They blew up hospitals. They blew up the schools. It's a Holocaust. It is. It's death from above. It's fire. It's what it is. And now, like, how many dead babies does it take for Piers Morgan to be shaken of his Hasbara propaganda? And only if you get. But I'll tell you who does deserve a redemption arc is Anna Kasparian, or whatever the name, Turks. I used to hate her, and now I'm like, nope, nah, I'm not even punching down left or whatever you call it. Like, let her go. Like,
no, man,
I'm
legitimately bummed that I'm blocked by her on Twitter, because I want to tell her thank you so much, but I got blocked because she did some like tongue bathing interview of Madeleine Albright, and I'm sure
she had some bad takes in the past.
Yeah, but
she's been so good on Palestine that all is forgiven. I'm like, you are redeemed for all your stupid takes on Syria and Russia and this and that, and like all. I'm like, I don't care. She's like a firecracker, man.
Yeah, she's beating the hell out of that fucking idiot from the PBD show. The I don't know his name.
Oh, Adam something. Yeah, he's just some tribalist bigot Jew that's like, well, that's my team. Like, dude, there's bullets in the skulls of children or snipers. It doesn't matter. Like, nothing's gonna affect these people.
I watched this.
Like, their identity is so wrapped up in, well, I'm the victim automatically. So therefore, whatever I do, it's kind of like the gold in my ear quote: "We can never forgive the Arabs for making us kill their children." What?
Yeah, exactly.
How about they can't forgive you for killing their children?
Yeah, exactly. That's how a non-psychotic person would look at it. Yeah. I saw some interview or saw some clip from that show, from the PBD show.
A psychopath would know to keep that private. They're so arrogant,
they don't have
that they really believe this. Like, I'm the victim. It's pathological. Like, there needs to be a term for it. It's beyond neuroticism. It's so delusional. Maximum projection. Always guilty of everything they accuse everyone else of doing, and they can't see it. Like, they're like, oh, this is our reality. It's funny, and it's not. It really is not simply a lie. Like, they've internalized the deception to such a degree that they believe their own bullshit. It's like that line from Metallica: "You lie so much you believe yourself." And I'd love that I have now quoted Ron Paul, Thomas Sowell, and all these people, and slid Metallica into this conversation. But you lie so much you believe yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
You could still hear American Zionists saying, why don't they just leave Gaza?
Oh, yeah. And go, yeah. Like, how come Jordan and Egypt won't take them? There's more Palestinians in Jordan than there are in the West Bank. What are you talking about? They have taken them in. Egypt's already dealing with the crisis of refugees from Sudan, from that civil war, also sponsored by the UAE and Saudi Arabia, that never gets any attention. Right. I think I've only really talked about that from people from antiwar.com, really.
Yeah.
Very few people. I think Brad and I talked about it. There's nothing, no one cares about Sudan. That's all it is.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I admit I have not focused on it.
You should get Brad Pierce on. I can't even think of that many people I can recommend. I could talk about it, I guess. Like, Hamidi, I don't know. Like, I don't know how. It's so much other bad stuff that it's always page 2 or 3. It's never the worst thing, but it's ongoing. You know, obviously the implications of, Ukraine is a far larger war, and hundreds of thousands dying, and the potential of this second coming war with Iran could be far worse. And they kind of have the American Indian treatment, because that's another thing that's always something shitty happening, but it's never quite front page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Need
they kind of
another
did this
voices for
with
the
the war in
voices.
Yemen too. Like, it doesn't matter if it is the
Yep.
worst thing
Yemen, they were
happening.
starving to
It's
death.
still relegated to the back pages because of, and I know people, especially libertarians and right wingers, don't like to admit this, but that is, I don't have a better explanation for it besides racism. I mean, it's also because you don't want to tell the American people exactly what we're involved in, because that was a war of genocide in Yemen. And very analogous, or very similar, I should say, to what's going on in Gaza. From the blockade and everything, bombing every manner of civilian infrastructure, anything that could sustain life, bombing women and starving them all to death, killing hundreds of thousands. I mean, it is
100%
Gaza.
tariff from Oman, like the only place they could get goods from, really. They
Al-Qaeda on the
basically
ground,
annexed
very similar to Gaza.
Socotra Island, which is part of Yemen, is now UAE territory. And it is weird. Why didn't, I mean, people would talk about it and it just wouldn't
It managed to
resonate.
get those
I had one tweet
resolutions.
get like 3 million views on it, and I was like, oh man, people are excited about Yemen. But you know what it was? Is I was showing them they were eating watermelon and pineapple or something, and they're like, and the people were just laughing because like the dark people are eating watermelon. I didn't even notice it, and I just
there
thought,
you
is
go.
that it? Is that why this is being shared? Man, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And I'll test that on Twitter. I'll say some edgy, outrageous stuff, and like, boom, this many million views, and then something serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 40, 50,000. I'm like, what is going on?
I do think a big part of what Musk is doing, though, with that is not you, but there's a lot of right wingers that are anti-Israel that make it all about hating Jews. And I
There are a
think
lot of
they
those.
like people seeing that and thinking that's the only alternative to being a normal Republican.
I'm ostracized by those people. They because I'll get in and engage with them. I will fight I don't just dismiss racists. Like, I go in and debunk their IQ curve shit. I go in and actually like argue with them, which I don't know. I was banned on everything anyway, so I was like, whatever. But there are a lot of people that are using Gaza as a vehicle to bash Jews. And it's not that they don't care about Gaza. I think some of them probably might happen to, because how could you not,
Right.
But that's not their motive. Like, they just hate Jews for real. And this is like a something they can point to with legitimacy to get other people to hate them. But they try and slide it in and be like, oh, this is not an Israel thing. It's not a Zionist thing. It's the Jews. Like as if they have some biological teleology to behave that way, and that is not a state. And I give them the example, like, well, that's odd. North and South Korea are genetically the same language, as close as you could get in location. And look at them. You couldn't be more different, because policy and ideology are not genetic. But I think Jews are just prone to act like this. Like, first off, it's not even there's no genetic commonality. Jewish is a religion, so you could call it a cult if you want, but like, it's not genetic.
Right, as much as certain Jews would like it to be, and shove that down.
Well, that's the thing. To a Jewish supremacist, it is a bloodline. We're like, but they're wrong. So whatever. I mean, they can say that all day. They can believe that. It still doesn't make it true. You can't just say you're a Jew because your mom's a Jew. That's not how genetics work. Like, that's you could be half at best, whatever. It's and so they do that to themselves. Zionism causes anti-Semitism because they also it's who was it? Greg, what's his name? Felding, I think it was. He said there are only two groups that believe Jews are a race: Zionists and Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, also,
that horseshoe is really there.
This is similar, like I said, in implementation, it's similar to Yemen, but the key difference is that it's being live streamed into every home, to anybody that has an internet connection in the United States, and we're seeing it every day. You can't get away from it.
I'll tell you, with Yemen too, is Twitter wasn't liberated yet, because when Dorsey had it, like, I wasn't allowed on. A lot of people weren't allowed on who would have spoken about Yemen, couldn't speak about Yemen,
right?
Because we're not allowed on anything. Can't use Meta, can't use YouTube, can't use. When Elon came in, it was kind of as the war in Yemen was ending, and so you could post about what had happened, but not what's happening. So we're on Gaza season now, or whatever, the new genocide. And yeah, of course the Houthis are backing Gaza. They went through it. And
Yeah.
you notice that too, like the Irish are supporting them. They historically went through it. Those that know act. So it's important to learn from history, but we can't even learn from recent history. This really is George Bush Jr. all over again. And they're just going to do it. Like, I know that they're going to go to war with Iran again. They said it's a pause. They're giving them the B-2s and all the maintenance and all, like you said, like everything that accompanies that. But then again, Iran apparently just got some AWACS jets from China. I mean, they had to buy them. They didn't just give them to them like we do. But yeah, so yeah, scissor, paper, rock right there. That was proven in a short little, I guess you could call it a war between Pakistan and India, that when it comes to fighter jets, whoever shoots first wins, because you aren't but one shot. So AWACS is the winner. I don't know how that would work on a B-2. Supposedly they're stealth, but we'll see.
Yeah, they're trying to get
Why do we
this
even have to
built in.
contemplate this stuff? It's not in America's interest to go to war with Iran. They don't have a nuclear bomb, and if they did, so what? They don't have a delivery system. They're not going to fire it across the Atlantic Ocean. And who would do that? You know how many nukes the U.S. has?
Yeah, that's just something else that I was talking to Eric Garris about this, the founder of antiwar.com, and he was just talking about how that gets left out of the conversation.
You mean the
entirely.
FBI agent? No. They investigate. That's another thing. The FBI investigated Eric and Raimondo because Raimondo reported on a public list of 9/11 suspects that included Dominic Suter. And so the feds investigated the whistleblowers instead of the criminal.
Yeah, I also believe part of the
Unreal.
investigation was started because antiwar.com received death threats on 9/11. And I think Eric reported it and they opened an investigation into him.
So it just took all the way until Justin's reports before they actually started getting hot about it.
I guess so. Yeah.
Is Dennis or Justin, whatever, like they were all over him, man. Like,
yeah.
No one was better back then on the neocons, really.
Yeah.
That you could find. He went into the OSP. He knew about the Likudniks, all that early. I can't really say nobody, but he was definitely the largest voice on that at the time. And he would get a lot of things right and then just move along to the next story instead of I was like, keep digging on that. I really wish we had him around during the whole Epstein saga and right now with Iran. Like, I wish he was with us. I wonder what he would have found, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's a weird time right now. We're sort of in this position where I think the war on Gaza has permanently changed the United States and the way people look at their own government. Yeah, 100%.
There are pro-Palestine rallies over here. They had them in Japan too. And they were never anything. I mean, they care as much about that as Gaza cares about Taiwan. You know, it doesn't matter. But people over here were saying this is sick. This is the humanitarian crisis of our time. I think Max Blumenthal said something like that in his speech. He's like, this is the, you know, the Holocaust, the transatlantic slave trade. Well, like, you pick something in history, like, this is our moment. We are watching on, you know, live families being blown to bits.
Yeah.
Just for being Palestinian. They're like, we want this ethnic cleansing. It's the most racist, hateful acts of terrorism in ever. I don't even think, you know, Godwin's law, but I don't even think the Nazis were allowed to just rape prisoners to death or amputate their legs and things like that the Israelis have done. They
certainly
really
didn't film it and show it to their people.
Well, at least they felt like they had to hide it because most of the German public was against it. They put other Germans in Dachau, whereas the Israelis celebrate it. The Israelis themselves, citizens, were blocking the roads so that aid couldn't get into Gaza. They did that on their own.
Bouncy castles and setting up little cotton
having
candy
a barbecue
stands
that they could smell on the other side. Like, and if you go on Telegram, and it's like over 90% support the ethnic cleansing in Gaza. And the only faction that's mad is not mad about killing families. It's mad about the hostages, which they could get back in a day by doing a hostage exchange.
Yeah. And that's what this is, the big farce of whatever Trump is negotiating with Israel, because Netanyahu doesn't want all the hostages back because it would require a permanent ceasefire and an end to the occupation and withdrawal of the troops. And they're not going to do that. And they're also,
Hamas has already offered multiple deals. It's Israel that won't take the deal. They're like, they better take this deal. Like, who is they? Israel's the one rejecting the deal all the time. Israel's the one that broke all the ceasefires when they had temporary deals.
Yep.
That's
and
what
our master diplomat Witkoff, who hasn't secured one success. That drives me
couldn't
nuts.
name the Oblast in Ukraine, but he's there to negotiate for him.
Oh, I didn't see that. Who asked him about the Oblast?
He was like, he couldn't name him, and he's like, well, you know, it's like, dude.
That's great. I think
Look, at least say Donbass,
like
so you could get Luhansk and Donetsk, but he didn't. I'm like, man, it's like 5 words. He couldn't do it, man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. No, and he's talked about like he's this saint.
He's a real estate agent that worked with the mob.
Right.
That's what Witkoff is. Witkoff was one of the money conduits to Bernard Kerik and Tyne Wertheimer. He got a $250,000 loan on 9/11. This is the police commissioner who found a passport, or someone gave it to him, and being the crack cop that he is, he didn't get his name or no. A guy just handed this to me, sure, and mysteriously, you know, $250,000 that we know of, and that was through Shimon Cohen and Steve Witkoff. That's why, like, when Witkoff was on the golf course with Trump, when someone tried to shoot him, I just thought, man, this stuff is so, like, I think what the internet did is it took characters like Witkoff, like Pearl, like Fife, like usually the people that are just some administrator and whatever aren't known. It's always like the president, and whatever the president does is their fault or it's to their credit. And all the little like shadow people, you know, the undersecretary or deputy secretary of this and that, nobody knows their names. But the internet made it so you would know them. And man, it's dark. Like when you pull the cover back and you look at these people, and that's just how it is with the whole Port Authority and all these real estate goobers, the Kushners included, the Epsteins included, all these tycoons, these property tycoons in New York, New Jersey that are just total leeches. The corruption never ends. When I did Trump's Zionist ball and chain, it was just like, and another one, and another one, and another one. They're all criminals.
Yeah.
And some of them go to jail. Like Charles Kushner went to jail, not for the honey traps he set up on his brother-in-law, but for the illegal campaign financing of Governor McGreevey, who was being blackmailed with his homosexual lover, Golan Sapel, who he met in Israel on a trip paid for by Charles Kushner. Like they set this whole thing up.
Jesus.
Because the Governor McGreevey, or whoever the governor of New Jersey is like the chairman of appointing people to positions on the Port Authority, and the Port Authority pulls out these giant lucrative contracts on ports, airports, seaports, and so on, and the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
That they get to divvy out. And it's just so corrupt. And Trump and Witkoff and that whole like little clique of real estate goobers are all involved in that, with the Gambino syndicate and like actual organized crime. And no one brings this up. And they can't, because the Democrats are guilty of all the same crap. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, the Blooms, we'll call them. And now they're losing it over the potential mayor of New York City. And they're saying it's because he's a Muslim and all that. I'm like, that's not why. I know why. Like, it's what I just said. Like, that comes to an end. That's the real reason they're tearing their hair out.
Yeah, that's why. And that's why the Republican, the online mainstream conservative media is just telling you essentially that this is the death of the West. You know,
oh my gosh. Charlie Cuck said, and a lot of them have said this actually, they're like, he's a Muslim. Remember when Muslims attacked on 9/11? And it's like, okay, but you know, he's right-handed. Remember when those right-handed people attacked on that? What does that have to do with al-Qaeda operatives allegedly attacked all by themselves with no state sponsor, just like ISIS? Right. What does that have to do with a guy running for mayor who has the same religion?
It's amazing.
As
And
another like billion people, by the way.
my favorite thing about that too is Charlie Kirk. He'll say that, and then someone will confront him like that. He feels that he needs to respond to, and you scroll through that thread. By the second post, he's going, he opposes BDS or he supports BDS, and it's like, so this has nothing to do with that original post, because if you know jack shit about 9/11, you would support BDS.
Yeah.
It's such
if
a
you
joke.
knew the rest of 9/11, let's say who. Well, I'm not gonna get into it, but like it's just like it's just like al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. That was not some grassroots thing. That was us. And al-Qaeda in Syria. That was not grassroots thing. That was us. But 9/11, that one they did all on their own with absolutely Omar Bayoumi working, for the Saudi intelligence and helping hijacker that. All of it. I can't wait for this new film to come out. Like,
I can't either.
It's gonna be free, so like it's gonna fucking help.
I wanted to ask you if
you know what, the public is ready for it this time.
Oh yeah, they are.
Before they would hear some stuff and they're like, oh, I can't say that. Now no one cares. They got so much fatigue that they're willing to hear it this time.
Well, it's so funny because I had that tape that you play throughout the movies of the documentary on the New York City Fire Department that caught the first plane going into the North Tower. So I had that footage since I was a little kid, and I always knew people were going, there's bombs going off, and there's explosions, and they're reporting. It's like to a man, all the people working in the towers, the firemen, the cops, like people are talking about this. And then
some of the boom boom they heard were the cars in the parking garage underneath were going off. But yeah, it's like there's an overemphasis on the physics and of this,
I agree.
It's there is some evidence of in tandem with the plane truck bomb. There is some evidence of that, and there were moving company vans caught with traces of explosives, and that was kind of the plan in 1993.
Sure,
was they used a Ryder truck and all that, but like even without all that, I mean, there was a team caught that did illegal work on the fire prevention systems. No one ever talks about it, but the paper trail is clear. These guys 100% were being protected by local law enforcement. That's what the Israeli art student thing was. And they had Saudi operatives helping them wire money, and got caught. That's the thing. They did get caught, and there are part of the JIA investigation, the Joint Inquiry Senate investigation, and they would just redact it. And it would get unredacted, but not for, 15 years or so, and just weren't nobody cares. But man, like Bayoumi filmed himself in DC, showing like how many police there are, where the entrances, exits are. Him and Osama Basnan got a house for Nawif al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Minhar, like bought him a house, bought him an apartment, lived in with them, lived next to him after that. There's so much they did that they did get caught doing, but the public isn't aware of it because all they know about 9/11 is Alex Jones.
Right. Yeah. And it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's that crew, the guys that you were saying that were messing with the fire prevention systems. This is that crew that killed that woman from the DMV in the South.
Well, somebody killed Catherine Smith, but it wasn't them because they were in jail. But the day before her trial, they set her on fire. She was burned so badly her arms fell off. And she didn't do that to herself. Like, she was a star witness, and that was over a case of it was a stupid thing. They were just getting IDs in Tennessee because you didn't need a social security number in 2001 back then in that state, whatever, fake IDs for driving these trucks around. But in that ring, serendipitously, when they got arrested, Sakir Hamad was among them, and he stupidly still had a pass in his wallet to do work at the World Trade Center. So from that, all this other stuff unraveled. But they didn't go to jail for that. They went to jail for the fake ID thing. And then someone murdered her. They never figured out how. They chalked it up to suicide. Susan Nash, the FBI agent that looked into it, found gasoline in her clothing. Like, no, this was murder.
Yep.
But nothing ever came of it. And Khalid Odala and the other ringleaders, just someone paid $250,000 bail, which I doubt a truck driver did, and off to Jerusalem they went. And it was just quiet thing. But when they investigated Dinko Mechanical, it was an obsolete business address. It ended up just being like some guy's residential address in New York.
Right.
They had forged fire suppression credentials. So they had reference letters that they just made up and signed, and they got these people in. The Port Authority did not hire them, which would mean a tenant in the building would have to hire them if they were going to do work on anything. They were not certified to fix any type of plumbing or heating or anything else in the World Trade Centers. And I proposed that they didn't. They were there to sabotage the relay pumps in the World Trade Centers, because if you don't get water to where you know a fire is going to be, it maximizes the damage caused by the fire. Yep. And that did happen. And they went to prison. And it's like, you can't get the story out because there's just so much overwhelming crap about everything from holograms to nanothermite that it just gets lost in the ether as stupid.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about 9/11 to a serious person because they've heard it all. And what they by heard it all, it means they've heard all the Judy Wood, Loose Change, Richard Gage, Alex Jones shit. And so it's just, okay. That's why I'm putting it all in a film, like chronologically. Here's who lied, who do what, because that's the only way to combat this. It's like, it's got to be a movie. If you write it down, they won't read it. You try and talk to someone, they just roll their eyes like, oh, you're one of those people. Like, I have to spend like 30 minutes proving I'm not Alex Jones before I can get my foot in the door, so they're ready to listen to what did happen. You got to explain all the stuff that didn't happen. It's such, I hate them so much. I'm like, Alex Jones got on air and said to Moab, Gaza, inch by inch in rows.
With Bannon, right? It was
that's the only way to do it. You gotta move everybody out and just inch by inch. I will get mother of all bombs. Chile. Excuse me. Fucking hate that slob.
Yeah, and
Moab oh yeah, just make them all homeless. Just blow everything up. That's how
even those clips
tunnels. What tunnels, Alex?
Yeah. Even those clips that people circulate where they go, Alex Jones was right after 9/11, and it's him going, this happened because of what Israel's doing in the West. And then he goes, and now we're going to get nuked by Iran and Syria because of Israel. I mean, he's just such a, I've always just assumed, and I just live in the reality that I'm assuming he's a total Fed. I mean, what is that shit?
He married his masseuse.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He divorced his wife and married his masseuse. Little happy ending, Alex. This guy is just fucking a liar. Like, he just sits there. He ruined conspiracy. Like, he made legitimate conspiracies, like Iran-Contra's conspiracy. People got convicted of conspiracy. He never brings that up. He brings up the Reichstag fire, which is not a conspiracy. That was an arsonist who set 4 other buildings on fire. The Germans did not burn their own building. Like, he'll use examples that are bad examples and ignore actual examples that happened in our lifetime where there were convictions. It's just, he is the worst melon head. And it gets to the point where you can't have a serious conversation about the 9/11, anthrax, or anything related to that, how they at minimal used it to go to war with Iraq. They did blame that on Iraqis. They said there was a connection between al-Qaeda and Saddam. And that's the same people, the same peanut goobers and stuff. They were saying that. They were saying that in July 30th, they wrote a thing called the Cowering Superpower, and Osama bin Laden's pictures in it. And they're trying to link him to Iraq. And this is before 9/11. This was their script. They're going to utilize it like, we're going to have the war on terror, which is never ending. And it's really a war of terror. Because we created al-Qaeda and ISIS. All these groups are secretly sponsored.
Yeah.
But that's where
on the most basic level, I try to tell people that any sort of support for Israel's multi-front war is a war for al-Qaeda. It's a war for ISIS, because all their enemies are Israel's worst enemies and vice versa. And you can see the fruits of this in Syria today. It's the most blatantly obvious thing that we are fighting for al-Qaeda again, because that's our coalition, the U.S., Israel, and al-Qaeda. With some other,
we should have a make al-Qaeda bad again.
Yeah, no shit. I'd love that. That's a great.
Because that's what MAGA is. They made al-Qaeda great again. That's what MAGA really means.
Yeah. He talking about Jelani. He's a tough guy with a strong past.
He's a handsome guy. He said
handsome, very. Yeah, you could tell. Trump is weirdo. But
did you tell some female reporter how beautiful she was? I'm not supposed to say this, but like, why are you saying this? You're
Yeah.
married, you're old, and you feel the need to comment on. I mean, dude.
Well, even his thing about Ivanka
And Rubio is behind him, just like you can see it, the pain in his face. You know,
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like, you know, he's the Make America Great Again guy. He's supposedly, you know, my favorite one was that Trump came in and he finally got rid of the neocons. Like the neocons are on the back foot.
yeah.
Now.
Yeah, the
Marco
guy that hired
Rubio,
John
Secretary
Bolton.
said Mike fucking Pompeo. Yeah, they're really scared
Pompeo.
now.
He did fire Bolton to his credit, but it was too little too late. Yeah. And Icky Nicky doing Bukake in the Knesset. But God, look at his Huckabee's in his cabinet. You know?
Yeah.
Ratcliffe is in his cap. What are you talking about? Like these.
Well, they're very clever, and it's like it's
He's
just
got that
really
holy
lame.
roller Hegseth. He should not be there.
No,
He shouldn't be a Walmart greeter.
My favorite video of him is talking about his like alcoholism without calling it that, and I can relate. I'm a pretty big drinker, but he's talking like very specifically about like there's some guy who asked him in an interview like, "What are you drinking these days?" He's like, "I have a fridge full of Miller Lite or Coors Light or something." He's like, "Because I'm watching the calories, and I usually do gin." He's like, "I put this much in." He's like, "And then just this much tonic," and like he's talking about how that's like kind of his thing. I'm like, this guy's a fucking alcoholic. Like on top of everything else. And believe me, I'm not throwing shade at alcoholics. I have my own sort of situation with that, or have not right now, but it's just he's a lunatic and he has no level of experience. He was the guy who, when they bombed Soleimani, was out there saying we need to bomb schools and hospitals in Iran directly. He goes, because let me tell you, Islamists use human shields. And they use international law against us. It's where they
again. Israel puts its headquarters in the middle of residential zones in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, isn't it hilarious because of the censorship regime, the way the Israeli media can report that they bombed a hospital, they bombed a university? I mean, who does this? And they're just lying because it's not like they try. Naftali Bennett came out immediately after that hospital story. And he goes, no one does this. Like, we have to just overthrow their sadistic genocidal regime or whatever he said. But
I had an English teacher who was an alcoholic. As I said, you mean a drug addict? And he was like, no, alcohol. I was like, is alcohol not a drug?
It's a hard
like
drug,
drugs and alcohol. Well, alcohol is a drug. You don't need to and alcohol. I guess it's legal drug, but he's like, that's a good point. I was like, yeah, you're a drug addict.
Yeah, it is a hard drug. I think the main difference of all that stuff is like what constitutes like harder drugs, or the other hard drugs like are consistent and they work. That's why people stick.
I guess the difference is it mostly is going to wreck your liver or whatever, and it obviously affects you while you're drunk. But after you stop drinking and sober up, you're pretty much back to 100%.
Yeah,
unless you've chronically like destroyed yourself. Whereas with other drugs that affect your brain permanently, like crack or something, even when you're not high, you're still messed up, and the cumulative effect occurs quicker. Now, alcohol, like if you severe alcohol, I guess could do that too, and it'll wreck your liver, like I said, and it could hurt your brain. But there's immediate mental effects from LSD or some of these other drugs. So those are more dangerous in that sense. But I would argue, like, at someone who is high or drunk or whatever, the alcohol is like the worst one as far as like the immediate effect. It doesn't have the worst long-term effect, but the immediate effect of like being totally intoxicated, which you can die from, that is as bad as coke, crack, or anything else. I mean, that's the worst one.
Yeah. Well, you saw that video of Hegseth, was it on Easter? Where
maybe not bath salts. Maybe that's the champion.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, I thank God I've never done that or encountered somebody on bath salts. This video is going around on the internet for a while, back when that was.
Do you know that the guy that ate someone's face was not on bath salts?
Oh, that was just his thing.
And the guy that got shot like 11 times and kept walking like a zombie wasn't on any drugs at all. He was high on Jesus.
Wait, and what did he do?
He was just high on Jesus, and he got shot 11 times. And he's like, he's got
right. I remember that video.
And he's just doom, and maybe he just didn't have time to die, but he's just going and smiling at the cop.
That
I'm
was,
like,
yeah,
man, I forgot
that
his
was
name. He's in
unbelievable.
Maryland. He's a tall guy, kind of older, gray hair, and he's getting plugged, and it didn't matter. He was not I thought angel dust, PCP, something. No drugs at all.
Yeah,
Just the Lord. He had the spirit in him. That's all it was.
that's wild. I remember that video. But yeah, you saw that video of Hegseth on Easter, that White House party. He shows up with one sideburn shaved completely, the other one's down to like here. I mean, like, you know, this is not a good look after whiskey leaks and all that. But no, I mean, that's the problem. It's just, you know, the Biden administration, they were so sadistic and so cynical, but at least they would eschew diplomacy. Like, that's one of the key differences. That was the scariest thing about them, was that it was always escalation and no diplomacy. But somehow,
Well, they wouldn't even
they
talk
found
to
out how to make
people.
it-
Like, they didn't even
Right.
have a channel open with Russia. That's why I say it's gotten better. Even though we have a clown like Witkoff,
Yeah.
Biden just didn't talk at all.
No,
Said
yeah.
no. I don't think we have any statesmen then or now.
No, I
Can
agree.
you think of is there anybody? I guess Gabbard, but that's not her role. Like, boom. It's true. We don't have any statesmen. Connor Freeman, please add him on X, guys. Anti-Zionist. Hold on. My eyes are messed up. Oh, Anti-Zionist League X sends in an Andrew Jackson, says, Dono from Red Pill Media X. Keep up the great work, Rye. Pray for science and new eyes. Well, I mean, new in the sense of like back to to being my older eye. I'll keep my same eyes, but let's get rid of the macular degeneration. And then same person who's Red Pill Media X on X, by the way, if you want to add them. Anti-Zionist League X says, gifted 5 subscriptions to Ryan Dawson. I didn't even know people could do that. You can gift subscriptions. So that's pretty awesome. 5 subscriptions on Rumble. That's really cool. We had to move away the way Rumble pays because I keep getting banned, but on different things. But that's very nice, man. Yeah, I have I'm gonna say eye surgery, but I have, I'm getting a needle shot in the eyeball in 2 days. It worked last time for about 3 months. It started clearing up, but around 10 days ago, it started acting up again. I'm going to do the video. Don't worry. I'm going to give an update on this because other people might have wet macular degeneration. I know Daniel McAdams deals with something like that. So I was surprised so many people are going blind. Who knows? It's not from vaccines. I didn't take the vaccine or anything. I think it's from lack of sleep. And I think that's why it reoccurred is I really didn't sleep much during the whole 12-day Iran war, which is my fault. I swore I'd quit doing that. And I did it because I'm on opposite time zones and I would be on a show and it'd be 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. And I wasn't sleeping enough. That, I don't know if that correlates or not. It might have had something to do with it. You shouldn't neglect sleep anyway, just generally for health. So I'll go see my doctor on the 7th here. It's that's tomorrow. Man, tomorrow it's happening. Oh, that's about as enjoyable as a root canal. And I will be blind for about 2 days because they put these fluorescents in your blood so they can map out. And that goes in both eyes because it is impossible to do in one eye and not get in the other eye. So everything's going to be super bright. But I have stuff prepared. I've got a 2-hour podcast for you guys tomorrow on all things and Ask Me Anything that I did on X Spaces. I've got a Ron Paul interview we're going to drop on tariffs and things because that is still an ongoing thing. The debt should be the background issue at all times. And we'll see. Hopefully this will work. There's not really a permanent solution, but it is possible that I could get a year or 2 out of it. But the main thing is preventing it from going to the other eye. That's the main thing. Yeah, so in 24 hours we'll know, and I'll be blind. I'll tell you this, man, being blind, even if you know it's temporary, is psychologically stressful because you're like, what if it doesn't come back? You start thinking, you have all these doubts, It is what it is. But yeah, 5 memberships. I did not know people could even do that. So thank you. Anyone else wants to do that, gift a membership to whomever. That is really cool. Let's see. I think I have all the other shekel chats. I'm scrolling up. Sitting Ducks, I got that one. I'll mention that again. I love these conversations. This is more of a conversation than an interview, but this is kind of stuff my friends and I would talk about. And I said, let's just record one of these. And so here's Connor Freeman. Let's get back to it. He's got a good point about the statesmanship too. Biden, just to shoot it, just didn't even talk. Trump talks, but not in a serious way, because it's a little bit worse because he used them as cover, pretending to do a deal while they were setting them up for a war. Is there anybody intelligent in the cabinet?
Well, even Gabbard has proven herself to be such a cynical careerist. Like, her big thing was being against al-Qaeda, wars, supporting al-Qaeda against their enemies, and then goes and she's thumbsing up and whatever in the Zoom chat or the Signal chat about bombing the Houthis. It's just despicable. And I was just going to say, somehow the Trump administration made the non-diplomatic policy, the refusal to engage in talks policy of the Biden government even worse, because now it's like, come to the negotiation table and we bring a gun and shoot you.
Yeah, and then yeah, like it got a gun under the table type of thing. Be better to not talk than to send the clowns, perhaps. So I guess RFK, I wouldn't call him stupid. I think he's actually quite intelligent. He just has no principles.
Yeah,
he's on film doing whatever, because you can tell he knows better. And this is what frustrates me. These other people, Huckabee and stuff, they're idiots. Yeah. RFK is not an idiot. He absolutely knows what's going on, especially with health. He definitely knows, but he's unable to act on it. And it's like he's been compromised. And when you got a guy that's written about being a sex addict, and he's met with Glenn Maxwell on multiple occasions and all that, you got to think, oh, now I know why they let him in, because they know they got him by the shorties.
Yeah. Well,
that was a popular tweet I did once. Like, all these wars would end if politicians would quit fucking kids.
Yeah. I see a lot of people copying you. Well, that's a great line. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, also, I just, that piece that blew up in the New York Times about the expansion of the Palantir. I guess they've received approximately $1 billion in new contracts or funding since Trump came into office, but the expansion of their surveillance with all these different government agencies, one of the ones that's already implementing their programs was the CDC, or not the CDC, excuse me, Health and Human Services. Right. Kennedy's little fiefdom there. And he also, what was the first thing he did? He said anti-Semitism is a national health crisis.
Yeah, he tried to bleed that into like that's a mental health. Dude,
as they're going after Harvard now,
that lets you know who has the compromise. Like, if the first thing he does is that, now you know who's pulling his strings.
Remember when he endorsed Trump and came out and gave that speech where he goes, Trump wants to end the censorship. And now when they go after Harvard, they're citing HHS reports to go after, because I guess that's the health crisis we're concerned with. Now, I shouldn't paint with a broad brush because I don't pay enough attention to see what they're actually doing right now under the Trump administration. But stuff like that is just so unforgivable. And I wrote him off as soon as he was hanging out with Shmuel. Actually, before, when he stepped on Roger Waters' neck, was such a cowardly thing to do and so unnecessary.
Roger Waters is a G.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, it's so see-through that like the rabbi had you go, like, here's your little attack. You got your little troll. He looks like a troll from the Labyrinth. Like, he's so ugly. That is such a just guy, the dildo salesman, who runs around in a towel in Tel Aviv.
Did you see the video of one of the Israelis during the Iran strikes, where she was filming herself running to the shelter and ran into a light pole?
Yeah,
it's just that
there's more than one of those. That's what's the best part. These anti-Semitic light poles.
It's unbelievable.
I had to stand right in her way.
I don't think you're right. We've been reduced to this where we don't have any good options. The most encouraging thing, I suppose, is the elevation of independent media. There's still a lot of propaganda in the new mainstream media. I mean,
I think Substack's the best thing ever because it allows people to get paid who don't have a whale or whatever, that you can have independent media. It's Substack, the partial liberation of Twitter. You could argue to a degree Telegram for the social media. But from those are on ramps to other things. Like you can get to antiwar.com or Gray Zone, like you mentioned, or something like that, because you saw it on Twitter first. You do need to get it out in front of people somehow. There's a lot of great websites, but it doesn't matter if they're in the dark. Like Rumble's good if you can get people to go to it. So you still need some sort of social media to act as the on-ramp to feed into these other things. There's that, and the new development of back in Massey with Elon. Like I think that's our best realistic path right there, is to stick with that.
Yeah, I'm cynical about Elon, but I hope he does do that. That would be phenomenal.
Right thing for the wrong reason, whatever. A right thing for a minor reason. I'll take the W wherever it is.
Same.
But I gotta let you go, man. It's been an hour and a half. I would talk to you all day. I think I'm trying to keep these shorter. I don't like these spaces that go on for 5 hours and stuff. But
yeah, no, I
tell everybody where they can find you one more time.
Sure. At the Libertarian Institute, just check the featured articles section, the news section, antiwar.com. I sometimes have articles there in the viewpoint section and write news on weekends. And you can follow me, or you can listen to Conflicts of Interest, which I co-host from time to time with Kyle Anzalone. And I'm on Twitter at Freeman's Mind 96. And thank you again, Ryan. Happy to come back anytime.
Thank you so much. And we'll have you back. Boom. There you go. And I just want to say, I wish other people would do this. I want to I was kind of writing them down as we went. All the name drops in that interview, which is great because listen, people deserve credit where credit is due instead of just swiping takes or being a professional cut and paster. So in that, just in no particular order, and if I miss something, I miss something, but there was Kyle Anzalone, Gareth Porter, Aaron Mate, Doug McGregor, Scott Horton, Max Blumenthal, Thomas Sowell, Ron Paul, Scott Ritter, Ralph Nader, Daryl Cooper, Joe Rogan, Matt Gaetz, Will Porter, Michael Moore, Philip Giraldi, Caitlin Johnstone, Andrew Tate, Anna Kasparian, Metallica, Brad Pierce, Eric Garris, Justin Raimondo, Roger Waters, and Thomas Massey. And I think I got them all. I might have missed one. And then, of course, we had the clip from the Colonel. Everyone I just named, and that was just in this show. These are people writing about these topics and getting it right. And Judge Napolitano, we mentioned him too because Kyle was working for him. I just said the judge, but another guy with a great show who's doing great work with awesome guests too. We need to network more. And a lot of people come on, just toot their own horn, and they're not telling people. We also mentioned the Gray Zone, mentioned antiwar.com, and mentioned different websites and stuff. This is how you build up grassroots. The roots got to communicate. But there's so much me, myself, and I out there. People aren't humble. They're egotistical. They don't share people's work. They don't give credit where it's due. And they actually, it's the classic Israeli style projection. Those who are giving credit, those who do share names, those who are reachable, those who answer someone just DM and the answer, like people who actually are humble, they spin it around and say, why don't you be more humble? Meaning the opposite of humility. Say, why don't you just let people plagiarize and steal stuff and promote themselves? The actual narcissistic, arrogant fuckwit that swipes other people's shit to promote themselves complains about the people that actually are doing original research and share and credit other people's research. It's beyond me. Projection is a serious illness. We're up on Entropy, by the way. Shout out to Entropy. No chats on there, but it is available. And, I kind of prefer that since Entropy was there in the dark times. When everything else was banned and Rumble wasn't around, Entropy was there with the solution for a lot of creators. And there was prior to Elon, there was a period there where the dark side almost won. We were almost all completely ovened, and Entropy was there. So, use that, promote that. I think I'm trying to read the chat. Hopefully in a few days, I'll be able to read better with the eyes. So thank you to Anti-Zionist League and Sitting Ducks for your Rumble Shekel chats. If y'all have any other questions, get them in quick. It is Sunday here. Taking the little ones out to go see the airport, because in Korea, airports are like theme parks. If you go below, they have so many entertaining things. Gifts and go 9/11. We reached our goal. I didn't start a new fund, but we're going to do a separate movie on Iraq and Syria, like the lies that went to war. That whole PNX section that was in Empire and Mask and War is Always by Deception. I felt like, all right, people know this now. Not all the details, but they kind of get it. In order to finish this faster with, you know, a looming second war of Iran coming, I decided we're going to keep portions of it, the anthrax stuff and Mark Grossman stuff, all that's going to be in there. But I really think we could just do a movie on the Iraq war and the lies that started, who did it, and separately. So that'll shorten the screen time because we're already pushing 3 hours. It looks like it's going to be a little bit over 3 hours. I don't want to go into 4 or 5. So we're going to cut that and make different films so that we can finish it faster, and we'll finance the other one. And it's really also just because of medical issues. Like I can't really research or read fast the way my eyeballs are. So, but the stuff we're working on now is already done. And it takes like 50 seconds to render 1 second on some of these things. We've got 3D animated maps and stuff, and it's a really cool film. But yeah, it takes a while. Even when we got everything lined up, it's just taking time. We're thinking October. I should be able to do private screenings maybe as early as August. I mean, in a month. So some of you will get to see that. And we're thinking the new name for Empire Mass Redux is going to be the Terrorist Industrial Complex. TIC for short. Did someone just ask my favorite food over there? Favorite food doesn't change, man. No matter where you are, it's steak. Let's see. Go Teth. Yeah, let's see. All right, then. That was Connor Freeman. I will have, there is a 2-hour Ask Me Anything style interview up on Substack right now. So if you go to ryandawson.org, if I can get that banner, you can listen to that right now if you missed it. It was part of a Twitter space that was 57 hours long, and we couldn't get the recording until they ended their space. Guys, why do you do that? No one's going to re-listen to a 57-hour space. It's stupid. Just cut it up into 1 or 2 hour segments max, and then start a new one if you need to. I don't know. But that's up on Substack right now. The MP3 of this video you just watched is also on Substack right now and on ANC Report. Either one is the same content and the same price. So have at thee. Let's do a funny song and then we'll get out. Let's do Woke and Gay.
Welcome to the Woke and Gay. Transformers are in charge, hey, hey. The girls' room is full of men. They're grooming your children. Or we'll just let a migrant steal them, because Christians will forgive them. Now put on your mask and stick your head up your ass. Pedro and Manuel need a free hotel. We will give you the fill. Now take this pill and chill. You can't even sell lemonade, but here's a naked parade. Your streets look like human vermin, but at least you're not all speaking German. Welcome to the Woke and Gay. Letting people rob stores is okay. Remember, if you need to get mad, it's Russia and Iran that are bad. So pay for these wars and let the queers and whores spread their hate every day. Welcome to the Woke and Gay. Pedophiles run the BBC, but Manlius is your enemy. A Smurf man making fun of Christ. Bearded drag queens, ain't it nice? Tell me again, there is no hope, because that top had a slope. It's woke, it's gay. Why do so many YouTubers play with minors in an inappropriate way? Welcome to the woke and gay. Hope this song did not hit a trigger. If it did, well, you're just a you can't eat, well, you're just
Boom, anti-neocon report. I got Connor Freeman on. I
That's
always
the only
make
reason
the
I
joke
wanted her to lose was just because it was a referendum on the genocide.